My name is Erich Kreuter, and I'm here today to talk about Conquest, Connect Lite, and our Conquest BACnet router. So our new Conquest hardware are field devices. It's an update to our current BACnet product line. The core line consists of a VAV, a Unitary controller, a general purpose controller, and then a companion digital sensor we call the NetSensor. All these devices are still fully programmable, just as our product line is today. You can program them with Connect, which is our configuration software. You configure with Total Control, which is our enterprise front end, or you can configure them with Niagara. So that means you can set up schedules, alarms, trends, inputs, outputs, redo programming, all with any of those tools. They're all BACnet advanced application controllers. So again, they have integrated alarms, trends, schedules, and event enrollment. Some of the complex BACnet objects, a little more than your standard controllers do. Lets you keep all that logic at the edge in the controller versus in the supervisor or in the JACE if you'd like. With Conquest, we've rolled out more connectivity and flexibility options than our current product line has. The first place we see that's with the communication options available. So MSTP now can go up to 115.2 baud, and we have Ethernet across all the controllers. So VAV, Unitary, general purpose all have Ethernet available as an option. With that option, you can do BACnet over Ethernet, BACnet over IP, or you could register that controller as a foreign device to a remote BBMD somewhere else. And if you guys have any questions as we go through this, feel free to pop in. There are two ways you could field commission without traditional laptop-based software, any of these controllers. Much like Simply VAV, you can set the controller up through the wall sensor. So you can set the COM settings, you can set K factors, flows. If you're on a Unitary controller, you could set fan delays, valve actions, those type of things. With the NFC, that's the mobile application, we can set the BACnet name and location. So things you traditionally have to get that laptop-based PC software out, now you can set just with your phone without having that laptop out on the job site. Here's a picture of the new VAV. Again, looks fairly similar to Simply VAV. It's a little bit bigger. It's got a little more horsepower electronics inside. More inputs, more outputs. We got 8 total inputs, 7 outputs. There's enough outputs there, just like Simply, to eliminate all those accessory relays that you need for floating valves or stage reheat. All that's driven direct from the controller. The controller has an integrated pressure sensor again and integrated damper position in the model.
Eric, I have a question. You don't let me hop in real quick, because Simply VAV to me was just such an elegant product. I'm going to ask maybe kind of a stupid question, but how many sort of position it. This is obviously a fantastic upgrade. Was the market asking us, why do you guys do this?
There's still a niche, I think, for a programmable device, even at the VAV level. There's terminal units now that have heating coils and cooling coils. They follow a non-standard sequence. Maybe you want to do CO2 or have DCV or extra ventilation room. All that's beyond the scope of Simply VAV, outside of that 80%. This controller would be where that's at then.
So you could seamlessly integrate some Simply VAVs and
exactly.
Advanced, and it all goes on the same network using the same programming tools and everything. Okay.
Exactly.
So this is just adding additional products to
right. Yeah, the big thing you would get here is if you want to do humidity or CO2 or anything that's custom.
Gotcha. Cool.
So the other thing you would use this for is if you have a place where you'd have Ethernet connectivity as the most convenient communication option. Simply V's MSTP only. So this would give you, again, a little bit more flexibility either on the programming side or the connectivity side. So there's relatively few part numbers. You'll see we offer a version with or without that pressure sensor. So if you have just a straight pressure-dependent VVT terminal, you could get one without a pressure sensor. Or if you want a smart actuator for, say, remote outside air damper across the building where you don't want to home run a lot of wires back, that actuator would be a good fit there. So the controller comes pre-programmed with both single and dual duct panel files in it. In all 3 unit types, so English, metric, mixed. All those you can load up from the NetSensor. So if we're talking Simply VAV, you're purchasing a dual duct or a single duct version. Here that all comes integrated in one. It's now a selection through the menu, so it's less models you guys would have to stock. The Unitary controller is...
so you're basically configurable, but then you have the right to...
Yeah, you could start with our application and then customize from there. You could take our application completely out, make it plain vanilla, and build everything out yourself. You know, all the content, you know, inside, all the programming is programmable. The content you display and the wall sensors still all programmable. So if you have a OEM application or a custom application for one of your integrators, you can put custom things in that NetSensor, so now he can set his own points through that interface.
Okay.
So here's the Unitary controller. Again, it has more inputs and outputs than our current Unitary platform today. Very similar I/O-wise to that VAV controller. You can get it with or without the pressure sensor. So now if I have VAV with an external actuator, like a train retrofit where I have that jack screw actuator integrated, I can run that same VAV program in this controller and drive that existing actuator. Or if I have a rooftop application, I can use an onboard pressure sensor versus having to buy an external transmitter, wire that back in, and integrate that external sensor. So it's all native on the controller now. Optional real-time clock and Ethernet again, even down to the Unitary level. A few more part numbers here. You'll see versions with clock, with Ethernet. So if you just have that straight non-clock, MSTP controller, there's a very value conscious option there. Or you can go up to the Cadillac and get something that has that pressure sensor and all the connectivity options integrated.
Is there one NIC or two NICs on the controller?
One.
There will be two.
Yeah, in September or later this year, we're working on having two. So if you order the Ethernet, you'll have daisy chainable Ethernet coming. So much like the VAV, we have multiple configurations stored in the controller all at once, selectable through that wall sensor. Rooftop, heat pump, 2 and 4 pipe fan coils for the non-pressure sensor model. If you get the model with pressure sensor, you get rooftop, heat pump, and the VAV applications. The next is the general purpose controller. So this is what we've traditionally called our 8x8. It's got 8 inputs, 8 outputs on terminals, plus the 2 in the thermostat jack, just like simply VAV. So I can hotspot back to that little miniature 10K sensor if I want. I'm not using up the terminal inputs to do so. We support the HPO modules. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with those. We have them in our current product line, but with our HPO modules, you can give each output a personality. So I can make by channel that output a triac, a Form C relay, normal open, normally closed, 4 to 20 or 0 to 12. And they also have supervised HOAs on them. A lot of our reps like estimating jobs of those because they can count up their outputs. They apply whatever their takeoff amount is for that, $15, $20, whatever they're going to charge. They don't have to worry about picking a controller with the right mix of HOAs, triacs, relays, etc. So it's really universal in a software sense as it's programmable, and it's universal in a hardware sense because you can make it so many different things but still have an integrated controller in the end. With this controller, I can expand the I/O count up to 42 by 40 with some CAN modules. They look identical to the base 8x8, so I still have that HPO card support. All the remote I/O talks back to the host controller with CAN bus, so all that I/O is native on that controller essentially, but you can locate those remote modules where it's needed, so at the switchgear or at the fan controller, and keep your backnet where you want it convenient to run the rest of your network to. Again, 40 inputs, 40 outputs. All the models, all the controllers in this series come with a clock. The only option then is if you want MSTP or Ethernet. Here's our new digital sensor. You see it's styled very similar to our AppStat device. Comes with temperature. You can get optional humidity, motion, or CO2. So 4 sensors all in one device, same physical package regardless of what options you get. Again, all the content in that UI, whether it's presented to the customer or if it's behind in those menus, is customizable. So if you want to do multiple set points or single set points, that's all customizable. 2 levels of password support, just like Simply. So we got set point and config, both separately password protected. And we'll show you a picture of the display all lit up with all the segments. So we have an upper field where you traditionally see room temperature, set point, flows if you're balancing. Icons for fan speed, heat cool mode, occupancy levels. And in the bottom I have a rotation of values field, with things where you can set time or show time, humidity, outside air, maybe you're going to show discharge air. Again, any points you want to put in there, if there's more than one configured, we'll just rotate through and show you all of them. It's available in white and almond, and logo or no logo. So again, if you have a retrofit where there's existing almond stats, we offer a solution that would match the decor that's existing. With the distribution module, then I can connect up to 8 of those Conquest NetSensors to any one Conquest controller. So think of a VAV that maybe has 3 diffusers, and I have 3 individual offices off that one VAV. Now each one can get the same digital sensor. I'm not locating one sensor in one room and the other 2 coming along for the ride. That would be another add over Simply VAV, because now I can do high, low, or averaging. And to the user, them all the same set point. It's really, again, up for you guys to customize that for your customer's application. Yep, everything just like Simply VAV is that standard Ethernet patch cable between controller and the sensor, controller and that distribution hub, and then hub out to the end sensor. The module supplies both power and address to anything downstream, so there's nothing to set up on the stat itself. It's a function of what jack you plug it into. So that's a real quick overview of just new features coming out in our hardware line over what we have today.